Alright, so this video is for anybody attempting to rebuild a power steering gearbox for a Toyota 80s, 70s. This is going to be similar for like an Fj80, Fj60, Toyota Celica, anything in that era that has the power steering ram like this with the ball bearings. There's plenty of rebuild videos on YouTube that you can look and see how to do all the seals and everything, but the really confusing part that isn't covered very often is the ball bearings on the power steering ram. And so I wanted to give a couple of quick pointers and to kind of understand how the system works. I'm not going to mess with mine because I just got it perfect, and it's taken me 7 attempts so far. But I messed up a few times, and here's why. So essentially, you have to make sure that the ball bearings in this system are going to be recirculating through this tube, which means when you're feeding the ball bearings in on this side, none of the bearings can go past here. So none of the bearings can be fed back into here, or else they'll end up in the end here and it'll bind up and it won't work. On this side, when you're feeding them in, none of them can go down the spiral going this way. So all of the ball bearings have to go in and get pushed inwards, and they can't pass right here and then come up towards here, or else they're going to spill out the top here. The reason for that is because this tube actually blocks the balls from coming out here once it extends, and from going in here into the empty space once it extends. It really makes sense if you think about it, because it just ends up recirculating, and then it's a closed system like a normal bearing. So you've got the ball bearings that go around in the spiral, and then it passes through the tube and comes back, so that they can't fall out. The first few times I did it, I didn't understand how it worked, and so I put them all in and it seemed really easy, and I started twisting this the rod back and forth, and ball bearings were coming out the top here, and I was like, that can't be right. So that's what you got to do. I'm gonna throw this in, and then I'll cut to me moving it in and out so that you can see how it works. But realistically, really quick short video for a very specific topic, but hopefully it'll help some people out there that are rebuilding these things and watching the videos that don't really go as in depth for it. This is the only complicated part of the rebuild. Everything else is just seals. So this is really the thing to focus on. Good luck. All right, so I put my tube back in, and this is kind of how the system works. This is how you know if you got it right. Don't fully unscrew this all the way, or else you'll kind of lose everything, but you got a good amount of play on this before you will lose the balls out of it. But so if you're able to spin this back and forth like this, I only got one hand, but if you're spinning this rod back and forth, and you don't have any ball bearings coming out of the top here, that's a very good sign. Secondly, if you spin it back and forth, test it out a few times, and then if this can seat all the way flush up against the housing here, so if you could screw this in and sink it all the way flush without any sort of gap, so without a gap this big, then you know that you don't have any ball bearings that ended up in the back here. Another test is just the shake test. You can just open it up like this, shake it back and forth, and you shouldn't hear any ball bearings clattering. If there's a bearing in here at the very end, I tested this. It'll close down almost all the way. It'll close down to about here. So you might think everything's great and you're going back and forth and everything, but if this spiral gear doesn't back all the way down onto this mating surface, there's something in here that's stopping that from happening, and you got to redo it. But those are kind of the tips. Make sure that none of the balls can get out of this end. You don't hear anything jingling in this end, and that's how you know you got a closed loop and none of the balls are on either end escaping. So